Man, if we knew that throwing Vladimir Zelenskyy out of the White House would accomplish so much in such little time, we should have done it years ago. But, you know, Joe Biden didn't want to throw him out of the White House because he probably would have thrown out his hip at the same exact time after just a couple of days since I've heard it called a debacle. I've heard it called a fiery debate. I've heard it called a blow up, a dust up. I've heard it called all these things. I thought it was just, must see TV. It's been just a couple of days since Vladimir Zelenskyy was asked to leave the White House after refusing to negotiate a ceasefire with Russia in exchange for a precious metals agreement and a rare earth minerals agreement with the United States. So much has happened. And really one of the most exciting things is to see how President Donald Trump's expertly crafted and hand-selected cabinet has been dispersed out into the wild to handle the media, to handle the press, and to explain exactly what happened in the White House on Friday. And I have to tell you, the more that Donald Trump's cabinet goes out there and shares the narrative, the actual truth, the worse it looks for Vladimir Zelenskyy, who now has retreated to Europe and is begging for, and unfortunately getting, billions of dollars from the Europeans, the UK, France. I'm sure I'll be hitting up Germany and everyone else next. But over the weekend, it was all hands on deck, and the messaging was similar. The messaging was the same. Vladimir Zelenskyy came to the White House, and he did not seem like he had any interest in negotiating a peace settlement. He came to the White House. He wanted to get the United States on his side, and he wanted to continue to fight against Vladimir Putin and Russia, a fight that Donald Trump and, well, pretty much any other sane person on the world knows is not going to end up well for Vladimir Zelenskyy and his countrymen and countrywomen. Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, was on, I believe it was Fox News, and he really explained that when this guy showed up at the door, he didn't want anything at all that President Donald Trump was offering.
What was so, I think, stunning to all of us in the Oval Office was that it was not clear Zelenskyy was going to go to negotiations at all, that he would ever be able to negotiate with Putin, and whether he shared our goal of ending this war. So what I made clear as Secretary Rubio, and I said, look, this cannot proceed, was that this was a huge missed opportunity for him and for his country. He could have left the White House on Friday on the heels of an engagement with President Macron of France, with Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, where they were talking about European boots on the ground, security guarantees for Ukraine, a positive movement towards ending this war, and having Ukraine and the United States being bound together for a generation economically. But what we made clear was that could not proceed, at least for now. And President Trump said in his announcement on X, when President Zelenskyy is ready to truly engage for peace, he's welcome back anytime.
And that doesn't seem like it's going to be happening anytime soon, because Vladimir Zelenskyy does not appear to want peace. He was offered a ceasefire deal by the UK, who's been trying to negotiate with Russia, and he did not receive that either, or he did not accept that either. This is a guy who has risen to fame and power and prominence and wealth because of this war. And if the war ends, I truly believe, as do a lot of other people, that wealth and prominence and fame will also end, and Vladimir Zelenskyy will have to not only go back to just being Vladimir Zelenskyy, but will probably have to call an election, which he might lose. He might have to step down or resign as the president of Ukraine, something he said he would only do if he were granted a membership in NATO, something he knows is never going to happen. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, basically said, look, this dude is nuts.
So we were 40 minutes before the cameras came in and 45 minutes before the meltdown. And the fact was Zelenskyy never stopped asking for, I will give no concessions. They've got to leave my land. I want reparations of $300 billion. And I want the United States to give me security guarantees while they're at war with Russia. And that's why the president called it World War III. You're gambling with World War III. We're not going to give you security guarantees while you're at war with Russia. It's just ridiculous. His requests were ridiculous. They were not reasonable. The president let it go for a while, he was there to make peace. Our president is there to make peace. As he said, end the death and Zelenskyy was not there to make peace. He was there to strike some sort of make-believe bargain that he had in his mind, and eventually that just ran its course, and Donald Trump said, I can't take this nonsense anymore, and made it crystal clear he's the peacemaker, and if Zelensky's not interested in peace, then he should go home and think about it.
And
That's exactly what he did. He didn't actually go home. He went to Europe and he got $3 million from UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who just days earlier pledged his allegiance and his never-ending friendship to President Donald Trump. Now, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who was also, I believe, in attendance or was at the White House earlier or after the Fed, and he's always lurking around, that guy. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson echoed a similar statement, saying this was supposed to go a totally different way, and Vladimir Zelenskyy is the guy that blew it up. And we're not sure exactly why. We're not sure if it was ego. We're not sure if it was fear. We're not sure if it was distrust. But if there's any player in this entire scenario that you can trust, it's President Donald Trump, because he has the power. He has the desire to end the war. He has the relationships. And Vladimir Zelenskyy feels that he is the sole decision maker in all of this, which just is not true.
I have participated in a lot of bilateral meetings in my time with heads of state and other dignitaries. There's always a certain protocol that goes along with this. I've never seen anything like President Zelenskyy's behavior there. He berated and interrupted his host, and instead of expressing gratitude for the extraordinary help that the U.S. has provided his country and effectively helped him stay alive and stay in power. So the way that went down was very disappointing. I hope and pray, frankly, that President Zelenskyy will come to his senses, come back to President Trump, express gratitude as he should, apologize for his behavior there, and accept this mineral rights deal, because that is the best way for us to get to a point of peace over there in that region, and it's in the interest of both countries.
It's really in the interest of every single country, and it's interesting that every single country doesn't see that it's in their best interests. Looking at you, United Kingdom, looking at you, France. President Macron and Prime Minister Keir Starmer are spearheading a European coalition to keep the fight going. They're spearheading a coalition to continue to fund this never-ending war, even though Donald Trump has declared live on television now multiple times that the war must end and that both sides must come to the table. And that's something, again, that he was hoping would happen, but that did not because of Vladimir Zelenskyy. Caroline Levitt was on with Howard Kurtz on Fox News, and she was asked point blank, hey, why did Donald Trump do all this on TV? Why did the cameras roll? Why didn't this happen behind the scenes? And that is something that I've heard a lot of people ask, but the answer she gave is the answer I think that most people wanted to hear. Yes, it was interesting. Yes, it was a civics lesson for all of us. But yes, it uncovered the truth about a guy who has become, I guess you would say, legendary in certain circles, a guy who has been elevated to a status that maybe he just does not deserve.
Why hold the meeting in front of the cameras?
Because President Trump is the most transparent president in history. And as he said, it was great for the cameras to be in there because the American people and the world were able to see what the president and his team has seen behind the scenes in negotiating with President Zelenskyy's team. They have continually denied the pragmatic reality of where their country stands today. 3 years have passed. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. Zelenskyy is losing the support of the American public for funding this effort. And it's a different sheriff in town. President Trump is not the same as President Biden. He has different priorities. He wants to negotiate a deal, and President Zelenskyy failed to recognize that.
And she went further. She went on to describe exactly what happened in the Oval Office. And again, that's one of the great reasons why the cameras were rolling. That's one of the great reasons why the staff was there, why Donald Trump doesn't do closed door meetings. He has as many people there as possible so that they can go out and tell the tale.
What happened in the Oval Office, I was there, was unfortunately President Zelenskyy came in with a mindset not wanting to negotiate peace. President Zelenskyy was also antagonistic, and frankly, he was rude. He picked a fight with the Vice President of the United States. He repeatedly interrupted President Trump. And so what President Trump did was stood strong for America, defended his Vice President, but most importantly, defended the American people who, after 3 years of funding this brutal war, are sick and tired of footing the bill. The president wants peace. It was clear President Zelenskyy wasn't in the mindset to negotiate that just yet.
Well, I don't
What happens with Volodymyr Zelenskyy is everywhere he goes, every time he's shown up, and this country included for 3 years, every time he showed up at Congress or at some award ceremony or in France or Europe, he was treated like a hero. There were parades. He was lauded. He was called brave. He was called a hero to his people. And sure, all of those things may be true, but also he's a diplomat. He's a president, and his job is not to fight an ongoing war. It's to find peace. It's to protect the people that put him into office. And instead of doing that, what he did was he declared martial law and said, there'll be no more elections. I'm your leader for the long haul until this war is over. And also, he doesn't seem to want an end to the war. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was on with George Snuffleupagus on ABC News, and he said, look, what you're talking about, or what you guys are pushing, this narrative that for some reason we're going against what the UN resolution was for Ukraine, or what anyone else should be dictating for Ukraine is just false. And he basically schooled the former communications director for Bill Clinton live on his own show, which is always glorious to watch.
Well, let me tell you. All right. So do you know what the United Nations resolution was? I'll tell you if you want to hear what it was. It basically said this has been a horrible war. It's time for it to end. The job of the UN is to bring about peace in the world. I thought that's what the UN was created to do, to stop wars and to prevent them. And that's what the resolution did. Was it antagonistic towards the Russians? No. Back to the point. But it also didn't praise the Russians. All it said is this is a bad war. It needs to end. And by the way, at the Security Council, which has not been widely reported, the first resolution on Ukraine that has passed the Security Council in 3 years passed this week because of the leadership of President Trump. And it's a resolution that says bad war needs to end. Let's bring the two sides together. That's what the resolution is. Again, what is the United Nations for? Isn't it not a forum to promote peace in the world? And shouldn't our president, shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd. We are trying to end a war. You cannot end a war unless both sides come to the table, starting with the Russians. And that is the point the president has made. And we have to do whatever we can to try to bring them to the table to see if it's even possible. I'm not promising you it's possible. I'm not telling you it's 90% likely. I'm saying it's 0% likely if we don't get them to a negotiating table. And the sooner everyone grows up around here and figures out that this is a bad war that's heading in a bad direction with death and destruction and all kinds of dangers surrounding it that could spiral into a broader conflict, the sooner people grow up and realize that, I think the more progress we're going to be able to make. But the president's crystal clear. He campaigned on it, and he's going to govern on it. And that is, he is going to be a president that tries to achieve peace, and he has been very clear this is a war that would have never happened had Donald Trump been in the White House, and it needs to end, and we're going to do everything we can to end it in an enduring and sustainable and fair way.
Go Marco. What? That's my former senator. I haven't seen him that angry. I haven't seen him that angry in a very, very long time. Listen, there's this whole conflict has been going on way too long. He's right about that. And the UN should come to the table, and the UN should step up and say, we've got to end it. But they're not doing that. They're doing the opposite. And it's really weird to me that Europe would want a sustained and long and involved conflict with Russia. It's weird to me that any of these countries would want to dedicate their troops and their fighting men and women and their sons and daughters to a sustained conflict with Russia, because if you look at the population of Europe, Russia dominates. The Russian population is twice the size of the next largest country, which is Germany. It's twice the size of the UK. It's twice the size of France and Italy. It's 3 times the population of Spain, Ukraine, Poland, and then the rest just kind of peter out from there. There would be massive casualties, massive damage and destruction, and it would truly be World War III. Not to mention that any other, I guess you would say, any escalation by any European country or by Ukraine or by Russia would certainly involve other countries like China, and that's definitely something you don't want. That's definitely something you don't want to happen either. Now, speaking of Donald Trump coming to the table and explaining to the American people, this is something that he campaigned on. This is something he ran on. And this is something that he intends to accomplish. Donald Trump will be holding a joint session tomorrow. He'll be speaking. It's a State of the Union address. But since he's only been back in office for 6 weeks, it's an address to a joint session of Congress. And Donald Trump is going to go in there and he's going to make his case for not just what he plans to do with Ukraine, what he's planning to do with Doge, but what he's already done. And Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has said, look, Donald Trump has already done something amazing, and tomorrow's speech is going to be a litany of successes.
President Trump is coming in a triumphant return to Congress to address us as the president once again. And in the first month of office, he has accomplished so much that it could fill 3 hours. I suspect he'll speak in a shorter time frame than that. But Maria, there's so much to relay. Normally, at this point in a president's term, a new president's term, they would not deliver a State of the Union. It would be just simply a joint address as it's entitled. But in this case, it actually will be more like a State of the Union address because President Trump has such a long series of victories, things that he has done, promises he has kept, and it is putting America back on a strong footing, and we can't wait to welcome him back to the chamber.
And Donald Trump can't wait to get back to the chamber. In fact, just moments ago, before I started this broadcast, he went on Truth Social and posted in all caps, as he does, "Tomorrow night will be big. I will tell it like it is." I don't know that he's ever not told it like it is, and I would expect nothing less from President Donald Trump. But I, for one, am getting my popcorn ready. Also, I should let you know that tomorrow night I will be live broadcasting during the joint session of Congress with President Donald Trump. So if you'd like to watch along with me with live commentary, then by all means subscribe to this channel right now, and we will make sure that you are. We'll make sure that you're notified, especially if you hit that notification bell. We will go live probably a good 30 or 40 minutes before the joint session, maybe even earlier. It all depends, but it's going to be an exciting night. It's going to be an exciting time. And it's going to be truly a great speech because so many great things have happened. Also tomorrow, the tariff deadline for Canada, Mexico, and China goes into effect. These are the tariffs that Donald Trump said he would impose because there's just way too much fentanyl coming into the United States of America and way too many Americans are dying. And Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, was on with Maria Bartiromo, and he explained why this deadline is so important and why these tariffs are going to be so effective.
Look, we care about two things, right? The March 4th is about the border, and both Mexico and Canada have done a reasonable job on the border. They're both working hard on the border. You know, we've had the lowest crossings ever under Donald Trump because of his ability to negotiate with Canada and Mexico. But the fentanyl continues to come into this country and continues to murder our people. And the ingredients are made in China. They're sent to Mexico and Canada, and then they come and attack our country, and that's got to end. So the president's been crystal clear on those 2 points. They have done a lot, so he's sort of thinking about right now how exactly he wants to play it with Mexico and Canada, and that is a fluid situation. There are going to be tariffs on Tuesday on Mexico and Canada. Exactly what they are, we're going to leave that for the president and his team to negotiate. And obviously, I'm talking to him all the time to discuss what that's going to be on Tuesday. But China's got to stop making these ingredients. Remember, in 2019, the Chinese told President Trump at that time that they would put the death penalty on anybody who made fentanyl. And today, they're giving the maximum subsidy they possibly can to the people making those ingredients. So the Chinese need to stop this murder of Americans, and Donald Trump is the only president who protects the American people.
Well, Donald Trump has given a little precursor to his speech on Truth Social. He wrote, "The month of February, my first full month in office, had the lowest number of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country in history by far. There were only 8,326 apprehensions of illegals by Border Patrol at the U.S.-Mexico border, all of whom were quickly ejected from our nation or, when necessary, prosecuted for crimes against the United States of America. This means that very few people came. The invasion of our country is over. In comparison, under Joe Biden, there were 300,000 illegals crossing in 1 month, and virtually all of them were released into our country. Thanks to the Trump administration policies, the border is closed to all illegal immigrants. Anyone who tries to illegally enter the USA will face significant criminal penalties and immediate deportation." He added also, "We should spend less time worrying about Putin and more time worrying about migrant rape gangs, drug lords, murderers, and people from mental institutions entering our country so that we don't end up like Europe." That is going to be one heck of an amazing speech tomorrow. And I, for one, cannot wait. Remember, the speech begins at 9 p.m. and I will be broadcasting live. So if you'd like to go ahead and subscribe, do so now. make sure you subscribe so that you can be part of the live action. Also, don't forget that we have a second daily podcast, and we go into more in depth into the news of the day. We talk about other stories, not just stuff from the White House, but from all over the world. And we also try to keep you informed with various interviews and long form content and commentary. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and you can find it pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts, on Spotify, on iTunes. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, every day at noon Eastern, 11 Central. Download, listen, and enjoy.